still in there. From Daf Mem Vav Mid Aleph, we learned through part of the Gemara already last week. We'll dial back and see some parts of Tosfot tonight. But in order to properly understand the Tosfot team on the page, we really have to first learn further into the Gemara itself. So to review really briefly, we had started last, we learned trying to understand a little bit about the frequency with which the various Brachot HaMitzvah are going to be recited on Sukkot, both for the mitzvah of Sukka and the mitzvah of Lulav. And we found that Lulav is only by day and not by night, therefore it's interrupted, therefore a case can be made, it should be recited every day. Alternatively, it is only to Oraita on the first day, and it's D'Rabbanan the rest of the Yom Tov. Maybe that's a mitigating factor to not make the bracha other than on the first day. Sukkah is a constant mitzvah, day and night. Maybe, therefore, the bracha is made just the first time, and it carries you through, right? Alternatively, the idea that each and every time you leave the sukkah, you repeat the bracha when you come back in to do an action, which is an action of kaviyut. If you could 100% predict when you'd fall asleep, then technically you can make the bracha when you go to sleep. But since you can't do that, usually you would you do it on food, so that that's the kaviyut. There could be other fair questions asked. Well, what about learning? What about reading a book, playing a game? But typically we say the kaviyut of where you live is typified by where you eat and where you sleep. This is going to have a nafkamina for the Yom Tov that's coming. And that's the hagdara of what your bayit is for the mitzvah of Chanuka. It's going to come up. All right. People are going to ask, well, I eat in this place. I'm sleeping in that place. I'm going to someone's house for a meal, right? And you have de'ot l'kan to l'kan. What about someone who's in a hotel and there's a common eating room? A dorm, common eating room. What about a kibbutz? Different places, Park Plaza. So everyone eats together. So maybe the kviyut is where you eat and not where you sleep. There's a whole discussion back and forth. Part of that is based on these ideas about what sets your place of where you live. But there's another axis, if you will, of conversation to be had about the bracha on the mitzvah, whether the mitzvah is lulav, the mitzvah is sukkah, and that has to do with, of all things, Chanuka, not in terms of the hagdara of the bayit, which is also going to be a little bit related to this sugya that we've been talking about every time you go in, and we saw that Tosfot last time when you with the tefillin, you take off your tefillin, you put it back on. It was the Gemara, but we talked about it, and I think we did see part of one of the Tosfot team. But maybe we didn't, and we'll see it tonight. Okay. But there's another element, which is the entire institution of Hadlaka Neirot Chanuka is, of course, the Rabbanan. Nobody holds biblical. But everyone today makes a bracha shek shav zvanu lahadik ner shel Chanuka. So tonight we'll see the Gemara, which appears in several places in Shas, most prominently the Gemara in Shabbat on Chaf Gimel, Chaf Aleph, but it's really the beginning of the Chafs. Ibam Madlikin. So that Gemara is copied right here, or maybe it even quotes in Masor Shas or something. And we'll see how we go in terms of trying to understand a little bit more about Brachot HaMitzvah. Once we've seen it, it'll make it smoother to look into some of the pieces in Tosfot here that presuppose that you've read ahead in the Gemara. So in other words, we're starting on a more superficial plane. I mean, superficial, it's not superficial, but learning the Gemara, just what's going on. And then we'll go back and we'll see what's going on in Tosfot, okay? So what we're up to here is we had a couple of little stories, about people who every time they put on their tefillin, when they took off their tefillin in order to, let's say, go to the restroom or something, that's usually the case in hand, they made a new bracha when they put the tefillin back on. And a few stories. So even though it seemed like conceptually, Rava said no, and Abaye said yes, but then there's stories, including a story about Rava, more than one story about Rava, that he himself didn't listen to what the Gemara claims was his shita, but rather, every time he put on his tefillin, if he went to the restroom or something, when he put back on his tefillin, he made a bracha each time. And we said last time, that's what we discussed, yeah, right? Right, that was the discussion. So we had a few of these little stories, and right now, Talis is not the same. Right. As we saw when we were learning, we actually did see Echad Zev Echad Zeh Shiva, the last Tosfot Mem Hav and Bet. We actually did see that, but we're already on Mem Vav Mid Aleph. I'm just saying when we were on 45b, there's a Tosfot that actually did talk about the idea that tefillin is all day long, should be on your head, right? The lulav, you pick it up one time, it's done, but sukkah, every time you come into it, right? And here, that's what the Gemara itself was essentially saying. So we're up to the words. The start, the beginning of the line is behu mevarche, which is the end of a sentence, and it starts. The Gemara tonight is Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, mitzvah lulav kol shiva. Yeah, right. Okay, so hold on. It's if you're looking in the Vilna Shas, Dibur Hamatchil and Tosfot Nichnas Leishev Ba, probably like halfway down the page. Follow your eye to the right of that, and there's a line there that starts with the word behu, bet hey vav, behu mevarche. Okay, halfway down. So in the narrow, you got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, I got it. Behu mevarche. Yeah.
13 lines up in the narrow lines. 13 lines up in the narrow lines. You with us? Ira, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, just making sure. Okay. Oh, Ronnie hears me. So okay, then obviously you hear me too. Okay, good. Let's go. So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, mitzvah lulav kol shiva. Shmuel holds the mitzvah of lulav is all 7 days. But here, as Rashi says in one word, libracha. He didn't mean the mitzvah is 7 days. That's some kind of chiddush. The point is you make a bracha each of the 7 days. Rabbi Shua ben Levi Amar Yom Rishon mitzvah lulav mikan ve'elach mitzvah zakenim. The first day, that's the mitzvah deoraita of lulav l'kachim lachem by Yom Harishon. But the rest of it, in places outside of the Makom HaMikdash, it's just a mitzvah of zakenim, meaning it's midrabanan. The beginning is, and therefore the first day is going to be deoraita, and therefore it's the ikar, says Rashi. Ubaya bracha, it means a bracha, and we have mikan ve'elach mitzvah zakenim. If you look in Rashi, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai v'seyato is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai who enacted it, and his helpers, meaning his bezdin. U'derabbanan lo baya bracha. And this opinion, Rabbi Shua ben Levi's opinion, is such that does not accept that you make a bracha on a mitzvah derabbanan. Just what's the bracha? There is no bracha. That's an approach. Rabbi Shua ben Levi has that idea. Okay, next. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar Kol Yom mitzvah zakenim. Rabbi Yitzchak says every day is a mitzvah derabbanan. The Gemara says, wait, Vafilu Yom Rishon? Wait a second. V'hakaim alan the Yom Rishon deoraita. We established that the first day is deoraita. The Torah says so. Oh no, Ema bar mi Yom Rishon. What he meant to say is not Vafilu Yom Rishon. He meant to say except for the first day. They're all mitzvahs zakenim, but except for the first day. So ihachi han Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Well, then you're making it sound exactly like the shita before. You said the same thing. No, Ema v'chein Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Say that. Okay, yeah, it's true. It could have said, and so says Rabbi Yitzchak. Fine. Rav savar kol shiva mitzvah lulav. But Rav also, like Shmuel, remember at the beginning of this discourse, Shmuel was the one who said the mitzvah of lulav is all 7 days. He didn't specify mitzvah d'oraita, mitzvah d'rabbanan. The point he was making is you make a bracha every day, the 7 days. And strange to say, Rav does not argue with him. He already agrees. Rav savar kol shiva mitzvah lulav. And here's our proof text. And the proof text is from the world of Chanuka. Many, many parallels between Sukkot and Chanuka. A lot to be said in the world of Hashkafa, but what it meant and historically, right? The whole notion of the 8 days and the 8 days. There's so many parallels. The olives, the harvest, the Chanuka Rabayit, the Chanukah means the dedication.
Yeah, the nace of Hanukkah.
The nace of everything. It's all. There are a lot of parallels. Ayin Sham, shiurim I gave years ago on the subject, probably in 2009. Or 2010, maybe, with Book of Maccabees, Lahavdil, which is in the Sfarim Chitzonim, which Chalila has no Kedusha whatsoever. But as a historical source, there's utility to figuring out. They viewed it that way. Okay.
When at the beginning of this Masech, we do a parallel in the 20 Amos with the height of the Sukkah.
Yes. And that's another example. It's another linkage, for sure. So now we have, and this is more, at least on the face of it, more incidental, only in as much as it's about a mitzvah d'Rabbanan and the bracha or brachot that are going to be recited in its fulfillment. But it's not a thematic connection otherwise. In other words, we know that Rav holds like Shmuel that you make a bracha on mitzvah d'Rabbanan. What will we cite as our proof text? Chanuka. So here we are. The Amar Rabbi Chia bar Ashi Amar Rav Hamadlik ner Chanuka ner shel Chanuka tzarich levarich. You need to make a bracha. That's a chiddush. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar Haroa ner shel Chanuka tzarich levarich. Right? When you just see it, you make a bracha. You don't have to light. You're just seeing it. Right? Okay. So this is Rav's opinion there, and that's why we're citing it here. Rabbi Yirmiyah we throw in for good measure. A question?
We're talking first day?
All days.
All day.
Yeah. My mevarich. What is the bracha? Right? So what's the bracha? Amar Rav Yehuda, Yom Rishon, Hamadlik, mevarich, Shalosh, Haroeh mevarich, Shtayim. Right? If you're lighting, he's making 3 brachas. Otherwise, you're going to say 2. Mikan velach, Madlik mevarich Shtayim, Vero mevarich Achat. Right? So what then the other days, one who does not light who just observes would be reciting a bracha of Shasanisim for seeing it. For seeing it. We're going to see Tosfot, Rashi, and Tosfot in this in a minute. But
yeah, and then the first night we say Shehecheeyanu.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you haven't done the action, but it's a chiddush to say just seeing it, you're going to make a bracha. And yet that is what happens, right? Ari, you said something I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
No, what I was saying is the similarities when we take the lulav on the first day, like we say Shehecheeyanu the first day. The first day of Chanuka, you say Shehecheeyanu.
Yeah, good, well said. And by the by, just to fill out your point, a person on the first night of Chanuka who sees Chanukah candles but is homeless would recite 2 brachas, including Shehecheeyanu, on a mitzvah they're not performing, but they're just seeing. Interesting, but that's the Gemara here says. And that is actually the halacha. That's what we say. Chalila, someone should be in such a position, but it's not impossible. Mikan ve'elech ma'aling v'arach shtayim v'rom v'arach achat. First of the wide lines here. My mevarich. So Taka, what's the bracha? Baruch Asher Kisham Stav Tzivanu lahadlik ner in brackets shel Chanuka. I say shel Chanuka, but there are many other shitot that hold that the minig is not to say shel, just ner Chanuka. I'm just saying. So. Do you say? Who said you say ner Chanukah or ner shell? Shell.
I say shell.
Yeah. I think the publisher won. The publisher put in the sitter with shell, so everybody says shell.
In high school,
shell Chanukah.
At MTA, I was taught not to say shell. But
Ronnie reports that MTA was taught not to say, but you never understood why, right?
Right, and I've regressed, and the whole family says shell, so we say it.
You got too many laminated cards from yeshivas and kololim saying say shell. So
right.
That's true.
Huh? The tune won out. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the shell, it goes in the tune.
That works. That's
really what it might come down to. Mark's right. Mark said it's the tune. The tune works better than the shell. So
tune works for both.
There you go.
Okay, so now this is a very important line in the Gemara. You'll cite it many times. You'll meet Jews who don't know anything from anything, and they'll ask you, "Ve'echan sivanu?" What does it say in the Torah? You have to light Hanukkah candles. Ve'echan sivanu? Answers the Gemara, Milot Tasur. The Torah, it does say so. Where? In Parshat Shoftim, chapter 17, in Sefer Dvarim. We gave her the authority was given by the Torah to the Chachamim to enact mitzvot. They're not mitzvot to Oraita. Chalili can't call them to Oraita. They're mitzvot to Rabbanan. Well, by the by, you should be aware, once we're on the subject, not a whole sugya to deal with now, but according to the Baal Halacha Gedolot and the Sefer HaMitzvot, the Ramban in his Hasaga to the first Shoresh of the Rambam says there's 613 mitzvahs, and they're defined as that which is written in the Torah. So the Baal Halacha Gedolot wants to argue, no, that number is a beautiful drasha. It's a nice round number because that's to do with the gematria of Torah plus the 2 of Anoch and Lo Yelecha. There's many more mitzvot to Oraita. And it sounds almost like the Bahag seems to be saying, and by the way, there's also a number of mitzvot to Rabbana that are essentially mitzvot to Oraita as well. It's very strange. Shita, there's a whole discussion about it. It has to do with the idea, and now it'll seem even stranger, that there are 7 mitzvot to Rabbanan that were set aside, that those 7 slots that were waiting for the Chachamim to plug them in, and he comes up with the 7 mitzvahs, right? So it works out very beautifully in Drush, Taryag, as the number of mitzvahs. How many letters are on the Luchot Rishonot? Keter letters, not Taryag, but Keter. I guess Tarach, which is 620. You understand? So 613 and then 7 more. So they have a whole dion. Now, again, is that what's driving the train? Is that really the engine? Like we figure out numerology and then we just plug variables in? Or is it no, there's a Masorah that there are 7 mitzvahs derabbanan that would be enacted, Chanukah, Purim, etc. How did Hashem know? What do you mean, how did Hashem know? That's the Amunah. That of course Hashem knew what was going to happen. Did we know? We didn't know. But when the time came, the Chachamim said, oh, this is one of the 7. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Again, others argue against it and they say, nah, it's beautiful drushes, but the 7 is maybe Zion mitzvah b'nei Noach, the Zion mitzvah is not. or it works out the gematria is 620, and it so happens it is an odd coincidence, right? There's 613 mitzvahs and 620 letters and on the Luchot Rishonot. Anyway, this is a discussion in the halacha, in the Bahalacha Gedolot. Anyway, but
Don't we always say
in the Gemara? What?
Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach? There's a lot more than 7, right? I mean, it's more like 40 something.
But it's even way more than that, because if one of them is they have to have dinim, and if you hold the shita, we'll get to Parshat Vayishla, that it has to be actually chosin mishpat, so they're actually chayv in all the chosin mishpat. So like, oh, that extra mitzvahs, and what is that? And there are various people throughout history have pointed out that it's 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, like there's the Aseret HaDibur were given to the Jewish people. They are not just mitzvahs; they're super mitzvahs, and they have lots of other umpteen mitzvahs that are connected to them, like 7 chief categories. Like one of them is dinim. So what does dinim mean? It's not one mitzvah. One mitzvah dinim. So some say, it means they have to have courts, whatever they'll decide. The other one is no, they have to have our courts, the same kind of Shulchan Aruch. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Lo tasur. Don't deviate from what the Chachamim tell you, left or right, etc. from the Sanhedrin Gadol. So they enacted Chanukah. That's all you have to know. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Sha'al Avicha v'Yagedcha. That's from Parshat Ha'azinu. It's interesting because it's not a mitzvah. It's telling you a story, and it's telling you, you know what the power of it is? Where's the tzivui? You heard from your parents. In other words, it doesn't just mean your parents. In this case, it means the Chachamim, but their authority. And another diun for another time, which I don't want to spend time on now because I do want to continue with the Gemara. Just interesting. Why did you need 2 sources? Why isn't Lo Tasur good enough according to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak? And of course, why does the Gemara itself come up with Lo Tasur? Why didn't it say Shal Vicha V'Yagedcha? They each have arguments. Mikan Lakan. We'll save it for a shir on Chanukah or something. But back to our topic. The next thing that's in brackets is according to the Rashal, Rav Shlomo Luria, also known as the Maharshal, Rav Shlomo Luria, contemporary, a little bit older actually, of the Ramah, lived in Lublin, one of the Chachmei Lublin that they speak about. So we're talking 16th century. He had manuscripts, very into manuscripts. He said that he didn't have this in his Gemara. That's not correct. So he skipped it. It's circle brackets. We'll skip it too. Next line. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Mani la behedya. Matni la behedya, yeah. Amarav kol shiva mitzvah lulav. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak has an explicit braita, and the braita is Rav says explicitly all 7 days there's a mitzvah to take the lulav, i.e., you make a bracha each of the 7 days of Sukkot, even as one of the days is d'oraita, the other days are d'Rabbanan. So there's 2 possibilities. One is we learn it from Chanukah, where Rav himself is saying, look, you make a bracha on a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. The other one is it's explicit, forget Chanukah, just in the world of Sukkah, that's what he said. No, of Lulav, I should say.
Yeah.
We're using the Hanukkah.
Mark has a question, give me a second.
Sorry, we're using the Hanukkah candles as an example of why we make a bracha on a D'Rabbanan.
Yeah.
But yet we make a same bracha on the first day of Hanukkah, which would be D'Rabbanan, and we make a bracha on the first day of Lulav, which is D'Oraita.
Well said.
Is there something quirky about that?
Yes,
Makes this comparison a little
shaky.
wonky would be the word I would.
Did you hear that on the phone? Mark
Yes.
pointed out that the mitzvah of Lulav is 6 days d'Rabbanan, first day d'Oraita. So we understand it's an extension. Chanukah is on shakier ground because none of the 8 days is d'Oraita. They're all d'Rabbanan. So maybe the comparison is not complete, or it's not apt. Maybe in that case, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak saves the day, and he says, "No, I have a braita that says that this was Rav's opinion." But your point is well taken. But it would be a little bit counterintuitive, don't you think, that Rav would hold you make a bracha on a mitzvah d'Rabbanan all 8 days, and yet somehow when it came to 6 days of Sukkot that are d'Rabbanan,
But-
no bracha at all?
Well, no, but you could make a case that if something started as a D'Oraita, you would continue to make the bracha
Continuation,
on the D'Rabbanan, given that Lulav kind of continues through.
at least in
days of
your
Sukkot.
in Harabai.
Whereas if it's something as D'Rabbanan to start, you may not.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, they're
Fair
different.
point. Fair point. Not sure.
Brachot is
Yeah.
essentially except for one, the Rabbanan,
I didn't hear you.
when we talk about.
Brachot generally?
Bracha, in general, is the Rabbanan.
The Rabbanan generally.
Except for the one.
Birkat Hamazon, maybe Birkat Torah, according to
Maybe, yeah.
Birkat Torah, according to the Ramban, with the Imeh. Yeah, right.
So what's what's the distinction in this? The first day being the oraita?
There's an idea that we make a bracha on a mitzvah to focus ourselves, to remind ourselves that we're not doing this action stam, but we're doing it to respond to the mitzvah. So you could say Asher Kiddushan mitzvotav v'tzivanu when it's actually a Kadosh Baruch Hu who was mitzaveh. But when Kadosh Baruch Hu was not mitzaveh, the Rabbanan were mitzavim. They made the mitzvah up. They made it up. So how can you make a bracha? We're thanking Hashem that you sanctified us and you commanded us. Hashem didn't command us. The Rabbanan did. And that's what the Gemara is saying, Behechan Sivanu. And the answer is, well, the Torah did. It gave license to Chachamim. Yeah, two sources, right? Either in Parshat Shoftim or in Parshat Ha'azinu. So, okay, right? The idea is that if there's a chiddush that these actions, even when they're D'Rabbanan, they require a bracha as well. That's machloket. Not everyone agreed. Back in the day, Shimon Levi didn't think so on the D'Rabbanan. By the way, I could argue against you, Mark, if I wanted to, I think, and say, well, not that I would want to, but let's say I wanted to. I could say the first day is the Oraita, therefore we need a bracha. The other days is what we call Zeichel HaMikdash. So it's not a commandment, it's a memorial. And the memorial doesn't require brachas. You're just doing an action. No, Kamash Malan, no, you do say bracha. But the case could be made that unlike Chanuka, which is entirely enacted by the Chachamim, so day 1 and day 8 are the identical thing. The step down from day 1 to day 2 on Sukkot is so radical that Zeichel HaMikdash means we didn't make a takana that there's actually a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. We made a takana, you should do some action to remember that there was a mikdash. But no, at the end, it is a takana, it is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Like, again, I'm mixing and matching a little bit. You go to the wedding, they break the glass. So it's not a mitzvah to break a glass at a wedding. It's not a mitzvah. It's a Zeichel HaMikdash. So you don't make a bracha on such a thing. It's a Zeichel HaMikdash. A person builds a home. They make 1 amma by 1 amma. It's a halacha psuka. Leave 1 amma by 1 amma. So says the Gemara in Bava Batra and Daf Samach. So that's what we do. We leave a 1 amma by 1 amma. You don't make a bracha on that. It's Zeichel HaMikdash. So maybe Lulav Sukkot is also Zeichel HaMikdash. No, Rabbi Yochanan Zaka says takana. We're going to take it. Oh, there's going to be a bracha, but maybe not. Again, that's what's turning on. Ari had a question.
No, I was going to say basically what you were saying to Mark. I was thinking Zeichel HaMikdash because we say on Pesach we don't make a bracha on when you make the sandwich on Pesach. There's no bracha.
Correct.
It's Zeichel HaMikdash Kehillel.
It's even part of the song of Kadesh Urchat. Speaking of songs, so that's how you know it's a real thing. But I'm just saying. But it is Zeichel HaMikdash. That's a great example. Yasher Koach. No bracha. Zeichel HaMikdash.
Rabbi.
Oh, Larry, hi. Go ahead.
But I think Mark's point is a very good one because even though the other 6 days are Zecher L'Mikdash, the comparison to Chanukah, which is 100% Rabbanan, therefore we can say we can use a weaker source to support a stronger source. Yes. Because the first day is the Doraita.
Good. I like it.
Yes.
Again, if you don't like any of this, you could just say, well, right after all this discussion, it was just kind of like, oh, by the way, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak chimes in on the heels of Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak saying, Shal v'cha v'yagedcha. He also happens to be quoted right after that saying, oh, there's actually a bracha that says explicitly, Rav held, all 7 days is a mitzvah of lulav, meaning in terms of a bracha. And that's like Shmuel, So, okay. Fair enough. Next, let's go a little farther, then we're going to see Tosfot with the remaining time. Tanu Rabbanan, ha'oseh sukkah la'atzmo. Right, you with me? Ha'oseh sukkah la'atzmo. Omer baruch Shehecheeyanu. When you make it, we already saw that Gemara. It's on the top of this page. The top of the page. Remember, top of the page. It's 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 lines down from the top. Yeah. Ha'oseh sukkah la'atzmo. Baruch Shehecheeyanu kimanu. Yeah. Okay. Nichnas leishev ba, Omer Baruch Asher Shehecheeyanu, v'chulei, meaning of leishev sukkah. Now, here we have the next part of this Braita, which is almost like the one before, but now there's a new twist. So now, Haita asuya ve'omedet. If the sukkah is already standing from before, im yachol lechadesh ba davar mevarech. If you can be machadesh something in it. Now, what is this referring to? On Erev Yom Tov, you come to your sukkah, and it is a sukkah yeshana. I want to remind you before anyone jumps on me, the Mishnah on Daf Tet in Masechet Sukkah, the Mishnah explicitly says there's a machloket Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel. If you can have a Sukkah Yeshana, Beit Hillel holds a Sukkah Yeshana is actually kshera. We paskin this. The Tosfot on the page on the Mishnah says there's a Yerushalmi that says v'tzarich lechadesh ba'davar. You have to do something new. That's what we tell people. If your Sukkah is up from last year, or Sukkah Yeshana means you put it up 30 days in advance, more than 30 days in advance, without express kavana. This is for the purpose of of the mitzvah, something like that. So you lift up the schach, you do something the chadesh ba'davar, yeah. But on the pure halachic level, you don't need to be mechadesh anything. And if you lived in a temperate climate that did not have snow and crazy wind or hurricanes or whatever, you found that sweet place to live, and you had your sukkah up the whole year, right? You'd save a lot of time and energy. Just be up all the time. You put it up 1 year, and you just got to year. Pure halacha, it's fine. You put it up l'shem tzeil, l'shem tzeil even would be good enough. Tosfot say, no, the Yerushalmi tells us good. Here, what we're dealing with is, let's say you had a sukkah that was standing previously, and im yachol l'chadesh badavar, if you can do something that is new in it now, some mavarich. The bracha we're talking about here is Shehecheeyanu v'kimanu v'yinaz manazeh on the making of the sukkah. Im lav, if you can't, l'chshikanas leishiv ba mavarich shtayim. If you're unable to do that, then when you come into your sukkah, i.e. on the first night of Sukkot, you'll make 2 brachot, leishiv sukkah and Shehecheeyanu. Exactly.
So when Rashi says the Zman, that's Shehecheeyanu?
Yeah. Rashi said the word Zman means Shehecheeyanu. That's the Birchot Zman. Now, the end of this part of the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi, Chazina Leil, Rav Kahana, Dekamar L'Kulor Kasa de Kiddusha. Rav Ashi, the Posek Acharon of the era of the Amoraim, says he saw Rav Kahana, generation past, that he would make all the brachot when he was making Kiddush in the Sukkah. And that's actually the halacha. When we build a Sukkah, Erev Sukkot, we don't make a bracha Shehecheeyanu, even though it's entertained as an option in the Gemara here. But functionally, we follow this psak. We make the bracha only at night. But technically, this is a sugya in and of itself. From a Mori V'Ravi, Mike Rosenzweig is a whole big shir about this. My recollection, I hope I'm remembering correctly, that it was him. I think it was. Is there a mitzvah to build a sukkah? Like maybe there's a mitzvah element building, because it's talking about making Shehecheeyanu on it. Like maybe there's something you performed. Now you don't say, you say Shek Shom Sotzvanu Lasot at a sukkah, livnot sukkah. We don't go that far. But if you look in Tosfot, we'll see there's actually more of a discussion than you might have realized. Are we ready for this? What? Yeah.
It doesn't say you shall make a sukkah.
Chag Sukkot Ta'aseh Lecha.
The festival.
I know, but you could make a drasha maybe. Not right. No, we don't accept it, but maybe Ta'aseh Lecha. Chag Sukkot Ta'aseh Lecha means maybe you have to make the sukkah. It doesn't really mean that. It really means the holiday of Sukkot you make for yourself.
7 days.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Oh, but look, I think actually we're not that sheer, but look at 46a on the top of the page, the very first words at the top of the page, they entertain the possibility. Maybe you do. And then when you take it, you say, even though you made the brach on the first day, you keep making it each of the 7 days. That was the discussion. That was the discussion over there. Right? It's strange. A person, there's no such havamina for tefillin or mezuzah, shofar. Why not? So look with me at Tosfot. And in general, of course, we have there's a lot to say about the issue of the bracha of Shehecheeyanu, which I entertained but rejected the possibility that tonight would just be a shir about the bracha of Shehecheeyanu. We could do that, but that's like a sugya in and of itself. When you make Shehecheeyanu, what's it on? Yeah.
Sorry, if a sofer completes a set of tefillin, he makes no bracha?
No bracha.
Okay.
If a sofer completes a pair of tefillin, or a sefer Torah, makes no bracha.
When I buy it.
Wait! Before you say, let's look. Tosfot.
Right.
Here we have ha'oset. First of all, if you look at the top of the page, the first Tosfot, ha'oset sukala atzmo, first wide line, Tosfot, davka nakat le atzmo. You made the sukkah for yourself. Aval la'acher lo mevarech. But if you make the sukkah for somebody else, you don't make Shehecheeyanu. Shehecheeyanu is if you make your own sukkah. Midei lo mevarech midei. Sorry, lahaitana the savar de mevarech la'asot. Right? It goes according to the Tana who holds the Gemara Menachot that we don't make a bracha of la'asot, of making mitzvah objects. There is a Tana who holds in the Yerushalmi in Perak HaRoah, Asa'ala atzum mevarech la'asot sukkah. Asa'ala acher mevarech lasot sukkah, and then, it says here lishmo, but the idea here that you're saying it, for whoever you had it in mind to make it for, right?
Rabbi, where are you reading?
but,
where are you reading from?
I'm on the top of page 46a in Tosfot. First Tosfot.
Oh, how
Right,
is
the
this
first
Sukka?
line
I
of the
see
page.
it.
The whole first line
I
of the
see
page.
it. I see it. I got it. I
Yeah?
got it.
Page 46a, top of the page, first Tosfot. Dibra matchil ha'osa sukkah la'atzmo. Yeah, davka nakat la'atzmo. Ava la'acher lo mevarach midei. Lahaitana de savar de mevarach la'asot. Kidai kinan perak atchelet. V'ika tana de tana b'Yerushalmi perak haroeh asa la'atzmo mevarach la'asot sukkah. There is someone in the Yerushalmi who claims that you should make a bracha. Asher k'sov tzvanu la'asot sukkah. Not Shehecheeyanu, but la'asot sukkah. Yeah, and if you made it for someone else, you should make the bracha of la'asot. The girsa we have told us la'asot sukkah lishmo. I mean, I guess the name of the person, the name Shem Hashem. I'm not even sure myself. The Hagod Hagra I have quoted here in the Gemara says that it's al asiyat hasukah, not la'asot sukkah, but al asiyat hasukah, but not lishmo. There's none of that according to the Gra. None of that appears. This is interesting. It's another sugya about maybe there is a bracha when you make mitzvah objects, because even though in one level it's a hechsher mitzvah, what about another, just to throw a monkey wrench in, va'asulahem tzitzit? Does that mean to wear the tzitzit? Gedilim taselecha. You could make a good case. It means to make it. At least there's some mitzvah component there, maybe. But no, we don't say that. We say it's on the Gemara mitzvah, on the actual fulfillment of it, not on the preparation of the objects. Look at the next Tosfot. Osa sukkah la'atzmo mevarach Shehecheeyanu. Tzarech lefarish. We have to understand. Tam my shna diyesh mitzvah shtakinu levarach Shehecheeyanu v'yesh mitzvah shelo takinu. How come some of the mitzvahs we have an idea that we say Shehecheeyanu, we perform the mitzvah, and others where there's no such mitzvah to say Shehecheeyanu? So, for instance, basiyat sukkah v'lulav takinu kita ashkachan hacha. When you look here, top of the page, the Gemara at least suggests, we don't do this practically, but suggests there's some kind of a bracha of Shehecheeyanu, at least to celebrate. I made my sukkah, I made my lulav. Yet, ubasiyat tzitziru tefillin lo takinu kidemuchach perakat chelet. Right? You look up there again in perakat chelet. It says there's no bracha for making tzitzit, making tefillin. The mefarish Rabbi Yochanan, my mevarich at tefillin shel yad ut tefillin shel rosh. All right, what bracha do you make on tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh? V'il laso tefillin lo yad lo mevarich d'lo chashiv lei. We do not make the bracha of laso tefillin because that doesn't seem to rank. It doesn't count, right? Kamoken yesh l'dak de Shehecheeyanu nami lo mevarich mid'lo chashiv lo. Right? So it sounds also, if you don't make a bracha la'asot, sounds based on the Gemara argument from silence a little bit. It doesn't even mention about making a Shehecheeyanu, which applies strongly that you don't. V'chein a pigeon haben b'var Shehecheeyanu. How come on pigeon haben, when someone goes to pigeon haben, there is a Shehecheeyanu that's recited. K'de'ita b'sof perak arvei psachim v'ilo amila lo mevarich mid'lo chashiv. But b'perakat chelet. Yet when it comes to Brit Milah, there's no Shehecheeyanu. Practically for Ashkenazim, there's no Shehecheeyanu. I think Sephardim do find a way to say Shehecheeyanu. I don't recall offhand. I have to do more research on it. It was Sof Rabbi Elazar de Mila. That's the parak in Masechet Shabbat dealing with mitzvah and hechsher mitzvah. Right? You can do a Brit Milah on Shabbat. Can you do the preparation of the tools on Shabbat? The hechsher mitzvah. Okay, so that's Rabbi Elazar de Mila. Right? Bahade brachot shel Mila. Right? We have a discussion about the brachot you recite on Brit Milah. Right? There's no bracha of Shehecheeyanu there. Now that one is a little bit different, right? Mila is a bit different, and the difference is, we're worried about tzara de Chanuka. The child is experiencing pain, so we mute our celebration. Not allowed to dance at a bris. It's considered tzara de Chanuka. The child, like let's say in the Suda, part of it they say it's like a concern the baby's there. It could be a sakani to dance with the baby just had surgery, but part of it is just tzara de Chanuka. It's a little bit muted, not Shehecheeyanu. Okay, v'chein kriyat Megillah v'arach Shehecheeyanu. But when you read the Megillah, we're going to say it. K'di'ita b'reisha koriyat Megillah omed. V'ilu akriyat halel lo mevarich. Right? We say halal, we don't. But Mikra Megillah, we do. So which is it? Kriyat Zu Halila. So we don't, how come on halal, we don't? Venira, the mitzvah sheyesh aleh simcha, tiknu Shehecheeyanu. It sounds like a mitzvah that has simcha associated with it. That's when we make a Shehecheeyanu. Uda amrina and beharoa, the mavarach al kelim chadashim. And we see in Perek HaRoah and Masechet Brachot on new vessels, not all new vessels, but some, we make a bracha. Right? So, Kadav Rav Shri Ragon, D'lo Samchinan Allah, the Maskina Perek B'chol Ma'arvin, deba'inan midi da'ati mizman lizman. So Rav Shira Gaon basically says we don't rely on basically on any of these, but the principle rather taken from the Gemara in Eruvin is one thing. It has to be a mitzvah that comes from time to time, meaning it has its zman. It's called a bracha of zman for that reason. It comes up with some measure of regularity and is associated with something about the general cycle of the year. And it's an annual kind of a thing. Mikra Megillah is an annual kind of thing. Shofar is annual. Lulav is annual. Chanuka annual. Hallel, many times.
No.
Many times.
And that's why I think it's just lahefech. That's one of the reasons why we don't say a Shehecheeyanu on Sfirat HaOmer, because Sfira has to do with the issue, the inyan of, it's the beginning of Sfira is not happy.
I thought you were going to say 49 days. So how are you going to say it at the end? It's within the year.
How are you going to say right?
Yeah, that one's messing also because it has to do, like you just said. By the way, we could have said as an example, what is Sfirat HaOmer? Zeich L'Mikdash. Right? I mean, so why is it there? Zeich L'Mikdash. Right?
Is there a difference between the Shehecheeyanu?
Question from Mark. 1 second.
The Shehecheeyanu of, let's say, a mitzvah like this, or the Shehecheeyanu, I'll call it of appreciation, a new garment, or different Shehecheeyanu?
Yeah, it turns out that it is actually in a different category of some kind. Has to do with simcha. By the way,
you can't compare between that and this because this is a different.
Well, yes and no, and that's part of the discussion. Yeah, it's part of the discussion. In fact, the Tosa, I didn't read the last 3 words, but vikashem pidyon ben.
Right.
Pidyon ben is not with regularity. So what are you saying a Shehecheeyanu on? Yeah. So there are various commentators. I think I saw this from Rab Toivish is his name. Rab Shmuel Toivish. He was a Rav in Romania, lived in the 19th century, and he's in the back. He's in the back over here. In his Chidushim, he writes that you're celebrating that the child, after 30 days of life, and there's a milestone moment. There's a regularity now. It's the first time that they came back around to the first month of their life, where there's actually a religious ceremony, which isn't so when there isn't a pidyon ben, and the child now is not in the category of a nefel. If you did the brit milah before 7 days, you're not allowed to. But if you did, the brit milah still counts. You're not mitzvah, but then the child is mahul when they get to be 8 days old. So that's not a regularity, like they passed a week or something. Plus, you have the Chanuka factor, which mitigates the simcha. But again, it's a little bit like, but that's, they're trying to sort of touch up. So how come pidyon ben has, and the idea here that there's an element of simcha and a beged chadash. There's a discussion there. What is considered a beged chadash for these purposes? And we get to these mitzvahs that come around once a year. The question of maybe that's enough to have the simcha that I'm alive to do the mitzvah again, et cetera, et cetera. There's a discussion, by the way, about mezuzah. Jeff, I'll take a question in 1 second. Discussion about mezuzah. Do you say Shehecheeyanu, we put up a mezuzah? And the basic answer, Pitrei Tshuva, Reish Pei Tet, no. Why not? Because it's not part of a cycle. It's a one-off. You could say maybe, by the by, a Shehecheeyanu, the Gemara, the Chazal say in Brachot, if you're bona bayit chadash, you say Shehecheeyanu. If you rent a house in Chutz La'aretz or you buy a house in Chutz La'aretz, not necessarily the case. But if you build a house in Chutz La'aretz, much stronger case to make a Shehecheeyanu on a new house. But it's on the house. It's not on the mitzvah mezuzah. Because the mitzvah mezuzah is not cyclical. It's a one-off, right? And it's not a simcha of the acquisition of the object, which is sort of in a different category. It's in the family. There's a simcha there, but it's related. Okay. After Jeff. Yeah, Jeff, go ahead, please.
I was just going to comment on the pidyon ben because I didn't see that as being.
Oh, what do you think?
One, but no. Before we read it, I was just going to point out.
You have a Tosa's question. Like, what's it doing there? Doesn't seem to add up. So yeah, point well taken. Yeah.
So just
try to add.
Just real quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm usually not listening because I'm a Bachor. But do we make a Shehecheeyanu on the matzah of the Eruv, or the Brachot on the new Eruv that we do every year?
No.
Wouldn't fit into this paradigm?
I don't know. Yeah, we don't make a bracha on Shehecheeyanu.
We don't make a Shehecheeyanu.
No.
It is a bracha though.
Yeah.
It's the right.
I think. No, it's the Rabbanan. He's asking about the bracha we make on the Erev Chatzerot once a year.
Yeah, we don't say.
So there's no Shehecheeyanu on that, and it's Taka question. Yeah, we by convention we renew the Erev. If we were stuck, let's say, I don't know, there was a pandemic or something, so then we might even extend it beyond the year because of a crazy situation, which may have actually happened in 2020 when frantic calls were being placed to the Av Bezdin. Like, what's going to happen now? Because, the meal that we all share is in a shul that nobody actually goes into right now. So can that still count? And his answer was basically yes. Enough people with keys of access could go in, and technically people have the code, etc. And even if they're not coming for their own reasons, and there was an extension that happened there. Okay, Benny, please.
Construction of the Brachot of Shehecheeyanu
Yes.
is on the Zman. This
Shehecheeyanu,
occasion
Balazman is that.
that I enjoying this. It's
Yeah,
a new
good.
clothes, piece of clothing.
Good.
In the older days, it was
A very big occasion.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
Or-
you're celebrating being alive for this
Right,
occasion.
and the same thing when it comes to heart. This.
Came back to the Yom Tov.
I'm
Shehecheeyanu,
making the
what is that?
Shehecheeyanu, blessing God because.
I'm at this time again.
I've reached this time.
Great,
Which.
great. Yeah. I don't know if, could you hear what Benny said? Did it pick up?
Yes,
Okay, it did. Good. Okay, Larry has his hand up. I think that's Larry. It's his iPhone today.
it is. I think Benny answered my question. The
Oh.
same thing would apply to building a new house.
A bona bayit chadash. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Next Tosfot.
Yes.
120 seconds. Why not just start a new Tosfot? Makes sense. Okay, let's do it. Nichnas leishev b'mavarach leishev b'sukkah. Right now, what is this going on? The nichnas leishev b'sukkah mavarach time. Right. So that's where we said you already said the Shehecheeyanu erev Yom Tov, and now you're coming on Yom Tov to sit in the sukkah. So you said Shehecheeyanu before, so he's going to say leishev. But that's what it was saying on page Memvav Amud Aleph. Now, hold on a minute. We just finished saying that you're going to make the bracha of Shehecheeyanu. It's called the bracha of Zman. But this Gemara was suggesting maybe you're going to say Shehecheeyanu on the mitzvah of the sukkah, and you're somehow now dispensing with the bracha about the holiday of Sukkot. What Tosfot are going to try to suggest here is that maybe the mitzvah of sukkah is so bound up with the mitzvah of Sukkot, hence the name, that the creation of the mitzvah object before is already a bracha on the sukkah, and it is the bracha on the zvan as well. Otherwise, we're left with the conundrum. How could you, you made a Shehecheeyanu on building this object, but now you went into the holiday. That's the question. That's the question.
Example, when women are driving to shul for kol nidre.
Yeah.
And they like him,
Don't say Shehecheeyanu. Nachon. Nachon. We try to remind them not to, otherwise they can't go in the car. Right.
Can't go in the car.
Right.
Because if you say Shehecheeyanu.
Accepted a day. Yeah, that's right. That's why we say it together in the shul.
Right.
So how could, right, so to this logic, did everyone hear Art's question? Erev Yom Kippurim, let's say a woman's going to light the Yom Tov candles for Yom Kippur, so she does not say Shehecheeyanu on the candles. If she were to say Shehecheeyanu, she could not get in the car to get to the shul, because then she accepted Shul Yom. Therefore, we have the Shehecheeyanu after Kol Nidre before Mariv. That's why it is where it is, yeah? So the idea that that works only because, that would be a huge problem. So how can you tell a person you're going to make a sukkah at 11 a.m. on the day of Erev Sukkot? You're going to say Shehecheeyanu. Are you accepting the Yom Tov then? No. So then what is that Shehecheeyanu? Maybe it's on the object of the sukkah. How could anybody claim that it's also on the Zman that night when you go in the sukkah? You follow?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know, everybody knows this Dvar Torah, right? Because some of us do this. The first night of Sukkot, it's going to be Leishev, and then it's going to be Shehecheeyanu. First the Leishev is Sukkah, then the Zman. What happens the second night? A lot of people flip it. Why do they flip it? Because the first night it was the Shehecheeyanu not only on the Zman, but also on the object of the Sukkah. The second night, it's flipped because it's just on the Kiddush, and then the Zman and the Leishev, because the Zman, you're making a bracha just on the fact that it's Yom Tov. It's not related to the Sukkah. You know why? You sat in it already, and it's already day 2. Yeah. So there's a question here. Tosfot entertained this question here. We needed to learn the Gemara tonight in order to understand this Tosfot. Because Tosfot says, wait a second. I look at page 46a. I mean, not literally, but I'm imagining. And it's saying, look at the top of the page. It says, if you build your sukkah Erev Sukkot, you say Shehecheeyanu. When you come to the sukkah at night, you're going to make one bracha. Then later on, the Gemara we learned tonight, lower down, page 46a, I find a sukkah, it's already standing. If it can be mechadesh something within it, I'm going to make a bracha then, and then at night, I'm going to say one bracha. But if I can't be machadesh anything in it, for whatever reason, I don't decorate it, I don't put beds in it, I don't do anything, then when I come at night, I'm going to say two brachas, Leishev and Shehecheeyanu. So Tos would say, the fact that on the top of the page here, it doesn't say you make two brachas at night. Kirikatani Seifa, Ba'asuya ve'omeret, ve'in yachol chadish ba'davar, mashma de nafik, aha de birech a'asiya, Shehecheeyanu. Right? It sounds like you're yotze on the fact that you made the bracha on the making of it, that you recited a Shehecheeyanu. Right? You say the Shehecheeyanu then, you don't say Shehecheeyanu later. Because the Shehecheeyanu was on the asiya of the object. V'tema. Here's a question. V'tepuk leid mavarach mishum yomtiv. Kimosh mavarachim ayomtiv de Pesach ve'atzeret v'chol shar yamim tovim. I mean, wait a minute. Don't you make a bracha at night because it's Yom Tov? Isn't that why you're saying Shehecheeyanu? That's why you say Shehecheeyanu the night of Pesach and the night of Shavuot and all the other Yom Tovim. As Art pointed out about Yom Kippur, it's the Yom. That's what it is, the Zman. So V'shema, so maybe, Kevan de Sukka, Machmat Chag Ka'atya, Svarahu, Dizman Dida, Af al Pi Shebirach B'chol, Potter, who, Af B'chag. Okay? So it's a theory, but he says maybe the fact that the sukkah is being built and is going to be used as the main vehicle of the holiday, that's why it exists. So the svara is that maybe the zman that you're reciting on the object of the sukkah, even though you made the bracha in chol, it's like you made the bracha on the making of the sukkah, but when the sukkah starts, the bracha's lights get turned on. I mean, it's my anachronistic view, but the point is it was already ready. It was waiting in abeyance, and now you entered the sukkah, and boom, it's ready to go. Excuse me. When you say Shehecheeyanu, it's on account of the holiday. Maybe it's even without a bracha. As we find out later on, if you neglected to make the bracha right away, now the bracha of Shehecheeyanu, you know when you would make it? You'd make it the next day. You'd make it another day because you could still make it because it has to do with the object of the sukkah. So it's an interesting idea. We don't pass like this halacha, like Lamaisa. This is interesting. Tosfot trying to argue maybe the sukkah is so integral to the holiday of Sukkot that you can even make a bracha before you have the holiday having started, as opposed to the other brachot which we recite on Pesach, on Shavuot, where the mitzvah objects, such as they are consumptive, but they're not surrounding you. They're not a space you're going into.
So if I made my matzah at 3 in the afternoon.
You don't say right. You do not say Shehecheeyanu. Why? Because the Shehecheeyanu is on the Kiddush. Because it's actually just a Birchas Hazman. Understand? And by the by, that's what we say, that Shehecheeyanu counts. That's why we don't say Shehecheeyanu. We eat the matzah, we eat the maror, right? We don't. That's why we don't keep doing it. Well, that's all we have time for tonight. Next, we learn, God willing, next Monday night, we'll pick up with the. I would like to start, if I can remember to do that, with the bottom two Tosfotim. I do have to run also, so I'll let everyone go. Thank you for learning. We will pick it up next Monday night. Ad kan.